Oh, banger.
Fight Night Picks is brought to you by Vertiball. Head on over to their website. It's vertiball.com. And listen, it's an awesome product. It's a local company out of New Brunswick, Canada. So make sure you support those guys locally as well as Fight Night Picks. But they're the only mountable portable muscle massager. They can stick on any smooth surface. They've got an industrial strength suction cup. Can support over 100 pounds of pressure. You can get really into those deep knots. I have one here at home. I use it for my back and my shoulders from holding up that Fight Night Picks Pick'em trophy. But listen, make sure you check them out. It's a great product. Like I said, they're recommended by physiotherapists, masseuses, and chiropractors across Canada, the US, UK, and Australia. And they're used by countless professional athletes like Minka Fitzpatrick on screen there, as well as Clellan Farrell of the Raiders. So if you head into the cart, make sure you check them out. So I've got a Vertiball massager in my cart right there. Use the promo code FNP. You're going to save 10% off your order. You're supporting this company here that I'm very passionate about in New Brunswick, Canada, and you're helping out us as well. So make sure you check them out, vertiball.com, promo code FNP, 10% off your order. And without further ado, let's get into it.
From the guys who brought you Fight Night Picks, and for a short time, hitting above the Mendoza line, comes the Allen Brothers' next project. Let's tear the cover off and join in 15-minute card break.
And welcome back to another episode of Fight Night Picks Kicks. Really looking forward to UFC 266 coming up tonight. Of course, we have the Fight Companion. But if you haven't checked out our website, fightnightpicks.com, all sorts of great stuff over there. You can pick up some of the merch that the guys wear during the shows. And you can also check out our own Joshua Hart's full card betting guide for this weekend's card. Who's he feeling? What's he thinking in terms of best bets? Volkanovski, Daukaus, Semelsberger inside the distance, and Morales. There's a nice little parlay at the bottom of that as well. And like I said, you can check it out the store. And word of the wise, if you are a small, there is a lot of stuff hanging around here in the old cubby hole down in the Fight Night Picks office. And we're moving this week too, so make sure you head on over there, pick up some stuff for you and yours. And if you haven't checked it out, fightnightpicks.com. And as we always say, let's get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, recorded in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, it's time for Fight Night Picks with your host, Craig and Matt Allen.
Ooh, and just like that, we're back and set for UFC 266. I can't wait for it. The chat has already filled up. Ollie's over here. He wants that Rob Font title shot, and so... Excuse me, giant burp to start the show. How unprofessional of me. Craig Allen FNP, berate me on the socials. You can find me there, Matt Allen FNP as well. Maybe that was the best start to the show ever. I don't know. Tim Apple saying them shirts needs an XL size. There are some XLs kicking around as well, but there's a lot of smalls and I got to get rid of them. So please head on over to the website because we're moving on Monday and this studio will still exist for a little bit, but it will be gone in not that much time. Laos Non is hanging out. Clint as well, and Noah saying, does anybody know why Aljo dropped out of the fight? Nobody knows yet, unless you're really in the know, but I'm not right now, because I was getting ready for the show. But Matt, UFC 266, it is an awesome card. We're going to be live with the Fight Companion for the main card, so you can tune in. That one starts at 10 p.m. Eastern. You can hang out with us. Maybe I'll wear a suit. I don't know yet. Haven't figured that one out. But I absolutely love the card. And top to bottom, the prelims are getting me jacked up. Uros Medic taking on Jalin Turner. I can't wait. Like, Moraes taking on Dvalishvili. Like, there's so many good fights on the heels of John Jones' arrest and the UFC Hall of Fame. There's so much going on this week, Matt. I can't hardly contain myself. I love every single minute of it. I'm fired the F up. What are you saying?
I mean, you really covered it all, but this should be a phenomenal card. We haven't had a pay-per-view with this kind of depth in a really long time. I'm super excited for the main event, and I might be in the minority. I doubt all of you guys watched Tough Season, 29, all the way through episode by episode live, but as I went back and watched them, I did see this rivalry kind of grow, and I'm not going to lie. Before we did our little review there for the finale of Tough 29, I wasn't as excited for this main event as I am now. Now I am 10 out of 10 hype, and I am so excited for Ortega versus Volkanovski.
Well, with everybody excited, let's flip it on over to our fight of the night screen. As always, presented by Manscaped. Check them out, manscaped.com. Use promo code FNP. You know the drill. You're going to get 20% off for free shipping. We flip it on over there, Matt. Dan Hooker, Nasrat Hakparas. Credit to both of these guys. Credit to their respective governments. Like, really, everybody
Credit to MMA Twitter.
Everybody pitching in to get these guys to the cage. Justin Frank saying, let's get the into it.
Thank you,
Justin, hitting up the super chat. I'm excited about this one, but Matt, Hooker, Hakparas, you know it's going to be a striker's paradise. Nasrat Hakparas, sneaky takedown defense if the fight ever even... If there's an inkling that it's going to go to the mat, you actually do have that. He did great against Alexander Munoz in that respect. Wrestling coach, Team Alpha Male. But Matt, I absolutely love this fight. And again, I'm hyped AF, but what are you saying here?
This should be a phenomenal fight in the lightweight division. We kind of know what we're going to get from Dan Hooker. Every single Dan Hooker fight is a fight of the night contender. And with Nasrat Hakparas, he's been able to beat most of the unranked competition he's been in there with. The only stumbles have been against Marcin Held, former Bellator lightweight champion. Shout out to the OG. And to Drew Dober, who's one of the top contenders in this division. I almost forgot, though, which isn't great. But no, I think this should be great. Both guys had to jump through a lot of hurdles just to get to fight night. So you know both guys are going to be uber excited to get in there and finally fight.
Love that one. Your next one, Marlon Moraes taking on Abdurakhimov. I see it over there in the comments section. Bishop Johnson's talking about it. Who else was it? Matt the Mick also saying if you pick Moraes, go by finish. But yeah, when I look at this one, Scramble City, if we get into some of that wrestling, I mean, again, maybe Merab, well, I say maybe. Merab's going to be able to out-wrestle him. We saw Merab out-wrestle and outstrike Cody Stamen, which blew my mind. Like, that was a huge feather in his cap. I wanted to see maybe a Merab fight against, like, a Casey Kenny. I think that would have been a lot of fun. But when I look at this one, all of a sudden, Abdurakhimov gets that opportunity, and then if he gets this win, he vaults himself into that top 135 conversation. So I really love this one. And for Marlon, if he gets the win, you derail a giant hype train.
And Marlon has a lot of doubters out there right now. He's coming off two pretty bad performances, if we're all being very honest. Now, you can look at it two different ways. Did he just have a really quick turnover after the Corey Sandhagen fight, and that's why he looked so bad against Rob Font? Maybe I'm making a lot of excuses for Moraes, but he was into incredibly difficult fights back-to-back. But with this time off and hopefully a little bit of time to rejuvenate his chin, maybe get some of his durability back against one of the top contenders in this division in Modafferi, this should be really interesting because Merab, we don't know what his ceiling is. Like, he hasn't been in there with these top guys yet, so this will be his introduction to the top contenders.
A great opportunity for both of these guys, and Matt, a great opportunity for everybody out there. Attention gamblers of all shapes and sizes. Our friends at Manscaped have a can't-miss bet for you today. The leaders in male grooming just launched their 4th-generation performance package. The betting odds are in your favor when you use the Lawnmower 4.0. It's in there on your balls across the board. This is the package to get you in the mood for whatever your gambling heart desires. Ready to take the leap to male grooming royalty. Join the over 2 million men who have joined the Manscaped movement by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping with code FNP. The Lawnmower 4.0, it's in there. And we talk about great technology, Matt. There you go. You get the light, the 4000K LED light. You also get, we got to talk about it. It's in here somewhere. Oh, yeah, the Crop Reviver Ball Toner. Spritz a little bit of that stuff on right at the start of the day. You're going to have a great one. The Weed Whacker. I shave my nose hair on the show. Why not? And the last thing that I want to show you that's in this performance package, ooh boy, the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant. Goes on like a salve. You just spritz a little bit of that on your hand, and then you're good to go. If you pick up the Performance Package 4.0, you're going to get the Shed Travel Bag. You're going to get the Manscaped Boxers. I'm wearing them right now, but I will not show them to you because that's inappropriate for an MMA show. But listen, it's all great stuff, and if you want to support the channel, help us and help them, you can check them out. It's manscaped.com. Use promo code FNP. You're going to get 20% off and free shipping with code FNP at manscaped.com. 20% off and free shipping with code FNP at manscaped.com. Fellas, don't gamble on shaving your balls with the wrong tools. Choose Manscaped. Your balls will thank you. Matt, we really do like the products.
We do.
They've worked for us, and hopefully they can work for you. Again, you support the channel, you're helping support us, and we certainly appreciate that. So check them out if you can. We would appreciate that. Matt, let's get into this card because I absolutely love it. The last thing I'm going to ask for you guys, toss us a like. I would definitely appreciate it. Keith Henhawk is saying, what's up, guys? Always watch your channel, but never seen you spot on for picks, LOL. Well, Keith, it's happened one time for me. One time, that's it. It's very hard, Keith. Very, very hard. But regardless, we're going to give it our best shot this weekend, Matt. We start the prelims off with a great fight between Jonathan Pearce and Omar Morales. And you talk about Striker's Paradise. This is going to be a fun one because for Pearce, he got caught in the striking with Joe Lozon. He got rocked. He got finished, which you don't necessarily like to see, especially in recent memory. But in his last fight, looked absolutely amazing against Kai Kamaka III. This is a guy coming out of the South. He went to Science Hill High School. He was a qualifier at state for that. And I really like what I've seen out of Jonathan Pearce. If I just exclude that Joe Lozon fight. I know it weighs heavy, and you talked about your bias when we did originally break this one down. The last one that I want to say, holy smokes, Bennett Charles, $50, won $450 off your suggestions last weekend. Wanted to show my gratitude. You guys are the best. You're the best, Bennett. Or Charles Bennett, or Bennett Charles. You're a great guy. Matt, yeah, when I look at this one, it's a great fight. But for Jonathan Pearce, coming out of fight ready, Eddie Cha, Santino DeFranco. It seems like every week I give these guys their props. I'm probably propping them up more than anybody right now at this point. But I love that. Sanford MMA with Omar Morales, who continues on his striking. His dad invented slam karate, for what it's worth. I love this fight, so what are we saying?
The question is, how good is Omar Morales? His only stumble at 145 has been against Giga Chikadze. You mean the best fighter potentially in the weight division? Like, Giga has that type of a ceiling. We talk about Giga Chikadze as a main eventer, a guy who could be in there against Max Holloway, and he had a fairly competitive fight with Omar Morales. And that's the real question I always have, is Omar one of these guys who he had a close fight against somebody, and that was his best night in there against Giga? Or is this somebody who they had a really close fight and maybe he wasn't as good as Giga on that given night, but if he can string 2, 3, maybe 4 wins together, could that be a fight that we see further on down in the future, and could he make it more competitive?
That's the thing. Like, I see a lot of people out there, they're like, well, he lost to one of the best fighters out there. And that's true. I mean, we're going to talk about that later on. There's guys who have only lost to the highest level of competition. Like Dan Hooker's one of those guys. Look at the last two, Chandler and Poirier. And they were definitely
and even
on
Edson
in those
Barboza.
fights. And Edson Barboza. But for Morales, the jury's kind of out because he's had that one really tough fight. He's beaten good competition. Gabriel Benitez is a channel favorite, and he had a great win in that fight. So, Matt, when I have a look at the odds for this one, it is definitely a lot of fun. Again, you have Omar Morales as the favorite. Open to minus 190, he's minus 152 or thereabouts. I'm going to talk about that later on. Pearce at a plus 165 at open. He's a plus 127. And over at Fight Night Picks on the Instagrams, 79% going with Morales. That's 366 total votes to 94 for Pearce. I think this fight's close. I mean, Phoenix is saying anyone else get JSP in this one. I think his wrestling could definitely pose a problem. And if he shored up his hands training with guys like the Korean Zombie, I could definitely see a great game plan in there with that team. I still have Morales in this fight, though. I'll let you expand.
I think Morales is sound enough defensively that if Pearce really does start to let his hands go to set up his takedowns, because that really is the key for Pearce. He can't just shoot for takedowns from halfway across the cage, and he can't just lunge in with his strikes. He has to find that real sweet spot in between the two. Now, I always call that the Marvin Vettori zone, really, but I really mean that with Jonathan Pearce. Omar is kind of interesting because he's not a massive power puncher. He does have power, don't get me wrong, but he's sort of a mix of a volume striker with his pure power. So I think if Omar could just string together consistent volume throughout 15 minutes, he should be able to win a pretty good decision.
Should be a great one. Wake Up Dioma saying, can't live without this channel. I definitely appreciate that. But yeah, Matt, this should be a great one. I have Morales so much so that for the QMK parlay, Omar Morales the first leg. I got burned. I went with fight to go the distance between Whitmire and Goldie, so didn't that one hurt. But I do like Morales in this one enough, especially with the striking, with the takedown defense. And his 36-year-old or almost 36-year-old gas tank, I think it'll hold in, but I absolutely love this fight. So the first leg, minus 155. Omar Morales, let me know what you're thinking out there. Al Snow is saying, well, thanks for the info, guys. Enjoy the epic card tonight. Matt, our next fight is silly. Matt Semelsberger is taking on Martin Sano. Few dislikes out there for this video because we went all in. And Matt, I don't like to go all in very often. I did it last weekend, oddly enough, with Sarah Alpar when she was taking on Aaron Blanchfield. But this is one of those ones where I've seen Martin Sano fight. I've seen his last 3 fights. He got knocked out in 1. He drew where he got 10-8'd in the first round, and then his opponent got really tired. And so that was a bad look. And then it's just not really great, nor is it a picture of consistency. His last win was in 2014. He's taking on Matt Semelsberger, who in his last fight, very competitive coin flip against Chaos Williams. he's had a lot of great performances if you want to go up through the CFFCs and so on and so forth. But a guy that, I mean, has a big win over Jason Witt. And you talk about wins and losses maturing and blooming. That's especially one of those fights.
It definitely is. And here's my issue with Sano. When you do look at not even just his recent losses, just his game overall, there's so many question marks out there. And this is what it means to just be good friends with someone who's a superstar. Artem Lobov headlined a UFC event. Sano's now in the UFC. Alex Antetokounmpo has an NBA title. Like, if you're just a really good guy and you know a famous person, you might be able to get a really good opportunity too. I think Semelsberger... Here's the thing, and this might be where we disagree on him and where his ceiling is. I look at Semelsberger as maybe just a fun fighter who, on his best day, could give a guy outside the top 15 a good fight. But personally, I don't look at Semelsberger as being a top contender, or maybe not even having like a top 20 type of a range. But I still think it's going to be enough to get the win tonight.
To me, in my mind's eye, I think if Matt Semelsberger is on and he's fighting at his best, I think he's in that Max Griffin category. Can mix it up with a little bit of the wrestling. He's got those long-range weapons. He's got decent boxing. I think that's obviously the area that he kind of needs to shore up a little bit, just get a little bit busier. But when I look at this one, it was thrown out there over in the comments section. Who was it? Bishop Johnson saying Nick's going to get slept. Nick Mathis is saying, what is it? Matt, easy money. I don't think it's easy money when the guy opened a minus 160. Obviously, that line dropped quickly. He's a minus 498 right now. So call it minus 500. Sano's at a plus 372. And when we look at the Fight Night Picks predictions, 90% have Semelsberger and 10% are silly. I mean, listen, unless Martin Sano has been like listening to like just Wu-Tang Clan every day, he's entered the Shaolin in his own head and he's going in there a full head of steam. I think that, yeah, you can definitely improve in your time away. I mean, the guy's still relatively young, too, which you like to see. But to me, like, I even threw it out there in that original prediction video where they were saying this guy's, like, making, not amateur mistakes, but he's making really simple mistakes against a not-so-great fighter. And that was years ago in Bellator. I just don't love all the red flags with Sano, a guy who's kind of not even here on merit alone. He's just here because his buddy's on the card and kind of pushed to get him. So I like Semelsberger in this one. I think with the hands, he's going to be good. I think he might even try with the wrestling. I mean, Herzog was able to do that. Maybe that's where you kind of worry about it. Sano did train with Tyson Fury, so there's that over on the Instagrams. But listen, like I have a picture with Dana White and me. Do I go, oh man, me and Dana, me and my buddy, and then just keep posting it? No.
I mean, Tom Aspinall, you could say that about him, but he really does train with him. So that's the difference. Here's the thing about Sano, and I can hear people already, and I guess I'll elaborate a little bit more on this in the co-main event with Nick Diaz, but when you have a long period of time off, there's a difference between like GSP and Nick Diaz taking a lot of time off when they've already had 30 fights of experience behind them. Sano's got, 8 fights and 4 of them are losses? Like, he doesn't really have that top level of experience that you really look for.
2 are losses, one's a draw.
2 are losses, one's a draw. But he doesn't really have a lot of experience. So when I look at the layoff, it worries me a lot more than when I do look at these other guys who are coming back after years and years off.
All right, Matt, we move into our next fight. Couple of debuting fighters, and if we go with the Nick Diaz Academy, we have Nick Maximov taking on a really interesting fighter in Cody Brundage coming out of Factory X Muay Thai. This is a guy on short notice replacing Carl Roberson. It's Roberson. I've always struggled with it, and I still will. But yeah, Matt, when I looked at that, I'm just really interested to see what we get out of both these guys. Because for Nick Maximov, I know we disagreed on it, and then there was fights in the comments section this week about, well, Nick Maximov, how did he do against Oscar Cota? Let's just not even argue about it. We'll just say, hey, that was a middleweight that fought a heavyweight, and he won it 29-28. We didn't really learn a ton out of that fight, other than the fact that Nick was supposed to go on The Ultimate Fighter. It didn't happen, and now, a long time away, he's in the UFC. He's taking on the short notice fighter in Cody Brundage, whose only pro loss was against, well, a really good fighter in William Knight in a fight where I thought he could have even finished him. Herb didn't want to end it, but whatever. He had him back flat, hammering away, and then ultimately gets elbowed when he's trying to go for a double leg against the guy with the leg the size of giant cedar trees. So when I look at everything that I've seen, Brundage in his amateur losses, they were who? Dalton Rasta, and the other one was a good fighter who ultimately won the Ultimate Fighter this year, and Brian Battle. Really decent level of competition. I like the striking. It's 1-2 leg kick. He can work in the wrestling national qualifier in Division 2. And for Nick Maximov, an All-American JUCO wrestler, never made that move up to the D3, D2, D1, but still, both of these guys, very adept on the ground. A little bit of a striking edge. I'd say a lot of it going to Brundage. But Matt, I know we differed on this one 2 days ago. So what are we saying?
This fight's just going to come down to the wrestling and pretty much nothing else. Because if Maximov is the better wrestler, he's going to win this fight hands down. If he's able to get on top of Brundage, and if he's able to do it consistently, then a submission will eventually present itself. Because Brundage is one of those classic wrestlers with his submission game. When he is in top position, he's got that heavy kind of a style.
Just
he
a
is
second.
tough to sweep.
Whoa. We got to go into the comments section. Bully Disciple saying, FNP was talking hot about Brundage finna take an L. Did you listen? Did you listen? No! We were split on it, so go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to the wrestling. I think if Nick Maximov is able to get on top, he has the much more complete submission game. So if he is able to get the takedown with any kind of consistency, I do think he will be able to get a submission win by the end of it. And the thing is, Brundage is going to have to initiate the wrestling at some point. I don't think he can just go out there and win a 50-minute striking battle. Even if he is getting the better of it, I think at some point these guys are eventually going to clinch up. There's going to be some kind of grappling situation, and that's where I think Maximov will strive in. So for those reasons, I still like Maximov in this one.
When I look at Maximov, like, I absolutely love the fact that week in, week out, he's competing at grappling tournaments. Is he a black belt? No, he's a brown belt, but there's some really good brown belt grapplers that are out there, Matt. When we look at the odds for this one, not that much different than they were the other night. I mean, they did kind of plateau. Maximov open a minus 350. He's minus 130 right now. Let's see. And for Brundage, he's at a plus 107, but he opened a plus 275. He's the second biggest mover and shaker on the card at a 61% clip. And he found out about this fight like 3 days ago. So it's kind of crazy if you look at it that way. The votes at Fight Night Picks over on Instagram, 66% Maximov to 34% for Brundage. But again, for me, I look at Brundage, I absolutely love the striking to go with the wrestling, and unless he tires, I see this as a great fight for Cody Brundage. I really do like him in this fight. I like him in that underdog spot. I wish I got him as soon as this fight was announced, and those odds dropped. But yeah, I like Brundage in this one, and glad that both guys made weight, 185.5.
Yeah, it is really nice, but I still like Maximov.
Matt going with Maximo. Matt, our next fight, Uros Medic taking on Jalin Turner. I want to hear from the fans over in the comments section. We got about 370 to 380 tuning in right now. You toss us a few likes, we get over 100. Then it's 400, 500 tuning in. This show pops off. And listen, we want more people to join the party over there in the comments section. But Matt, yeah, when I'm looking at this one, Jalin Turner, that pop at the end of his shots, those really long, probing type of shots that he does have. Great finish win over Brock Weaver's last time out. For Uros Medic, a guy that didn't really take on the best level of competition. I mean, we can kind of poo-poo Alaska FC as much as we want, because it's bad. It's bad.
Other than like Jared Cannonier, yeah.
Yeah, it really is bad. But yeah, when I look at this fight, such an interesting one. I want to answer a question that was over there because there's a few people saying Medic, Malone Hart, Medic, Voodoo saying, I think Jalin takes this one. Keith's question earlier, yeah. The point of question mark kicks is we get the opportunity to look back at the weigh-ins. We get an opportunity to look back at the complete week and then make a final pick and prediction. We can get kind of tee-heed and laughed at in the comments section on the original videos. But if we switch it, we get it right, we're the ones laughing, and so are you. So yeah, when I look at this one, this is such a close fight. Like, I don't see Uros Medic running away with it. I don't see Jalin Turner running away with it. I see it lined perfectly, and I love the matchmaking in this one.
This should be a really fun fight, and this could have been on the Fight of the Night screen without a doubt, because from what we know about Uros Medic, and yes, there is still a lot of unknown with him and with his whole game, it's pretty exciting. Like, the best version of Medic is a wild flurry of punches, crazy flying knees. Like, it's a lot of excitement, a lot of explosion. Now, there is a lot of pros that come with that, and a lot of cons that come with that as well. We haven't really seen him tested in one of those, and I'm going to kind of call it a Jalin Turner type of a fight, because what Jalin Turner manages to do in a lot of his fights is that he can win the minutes. He can win by sticking behind the jab, just being consistent. The problem with Turner is that he can get out flurried. The bigger actions are normally done by his opponents and not by him, and that's what concerns me about him in this fight. He might be working behind the jab for the first 3 minutes of the round. That might be all fine and dandy, but I think once Medic does decide, okay, I finally got his timing down. Now I can slip a shot. Now I can start to actually unload with some of my own strikes. I think Medic should be able to get his power shots off on Turner, because the thing about Turner is that he kind of does freeze up when he does get pressured, because a lot of tall fighters, they have one of two reactions. They either have the Luke Rockhold where they kind of stiffen up and put their chin back. I'm not saying that's exactly what Jalin Turner does, but the thing about Turner is that once guys get in, he has a tendency to move his hips back for his takedown defense, and he can kind of get caught up in some clinch situations. That's where this fight will get really fun, because I think Jalin Turner might actually have the advantage in the clinch, and I do think that that's a position that we're going to see a lot in this fight. With all that being said, I still think Medic can land one of those big power shots at some point throughout this fight.
I think Uros Medic, and it's mentioned there by NBA MMA, that's going to be my point. The fact that he's now training out of King's MMA. He was there for his last camp. He's there for this one. He's not training out of Anchorage anymore. Not that everybody from Alaska is from Anchorage, but that was the spot that he was billed out of before. But when we look at Uros Medic, open to minus 185. You can get him at a minus 126 right now. Jalin Turner open to plus 160. He's plus 104. Seems like almost everybody's going with, the man himself, Medic. If you look at it at Fight Night Picks, 66% Medic to 34% Turner. I really do like Turner in this one because of that length, because of the pop at the end of his shots. And we haven't really seen Uros Medic get backed up in really any of his fights. Like, he's been able to out-wrestle those guys in Alaska, whether it was at middleweight, whether it was at, welterweight, now here at lightweight. It's really weird. Both these guys giant for the division, and Jalin Turner's 2 UFC losses are to really good fighters. Diego Casas hitting us up in the super chat. Shots, Patron, no ice. I don't know. I don't have Patron here.
Maybe he'll have to join us for the fight companion, and we might
Well,
get wild
Diego
over
will
there.
be there for
yeah,
the fight
he will.
companion. It gets a little crazy
It
there.
does.
Player Owning says Turner has submissions too. And whoever
He
it was
does.
earlier on that had mentioned that Turner's trained in the past with Roosevelt Roberts, I don't know about that, but Turner trains at Ruka Sport and Carlson Gracie Riverside, two really, really good gyms in their own right. Like, Ruka Sport's one of those private ones that champions fight of. Cyborg, Bisbing, RDA, the list goes on. So yeah, I wouldn't go too far, if you're trying to knock Turner's camps, because he trains with some really good fighters.
Sure, I guess. Every fighter trains with guys who are really good and some guys who you've never heard of, so I wouldn't put that much stock into it. I still like Medic in this one, though.
Where does Harry Hunsucker train?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Professor Chris, why would you not have Patron there? I don't understand, because it's Canada. That's not a good answer. I don't like Patron. I don't like tequila at all. Roxanne Modafferi's taking on Taila Santos. I like this one quite a bit, because for Roxanne Modafferi, going to set the record for all-time MMA fights in the female category at 45. So great for Roxanne Modafferi, true pioneer of women's MMA. I saw a lot of people making fun of her record on Malone Hart hitting us up with $99 in the super chat. Holy crow.
Very nice of you.
You're the MVP. You and the earlier one in the show. Wow. The support's there, so listen, we're going to keep doing it. And if this week is bad, we'll join you for the fight companion, because you're going to get to find out about it. But we'll be back next week. I love the card. Walker taking on Santos, but Malone Hart, really do appreciate that. But for this fight, Matt, I mean, Roxanne Modafferi, she's stifled fighters. She's ended hype trains. Macy Barber probably chief among them. I really like Taila Santos' game, and we've kind of seen more and more from her since she lost that fight to Mara Romero Barella. That might have been just, you get your feet wet in the UFC. It might have been one of those Dricus du Plessis round one against Perez. It was one of those ones, but she's looked amazing in her last two over Molly McCann and Jillian Robertson. True stalwarts of the division, I'd say, at this point. I really do think she has a great opportunity here. Gator Roll saying, any update, resident Google Podcast listener. Gator Rolls, I appreciate the super chat. Let me know in the comment section. I will be looking for it, because I added Google Podcasts onto the website. So it should be there, but if it's not, let me look back into it. I promise you I will, because I did my best to put that on there. But Matt, great fight coming up. What are we saying?
How many more times are we going to do this to poor Roxanne? Like, it's gotten to that point where she's fought 19 contenders in a row, or 19 prospects in a row, I should say. And yes, she's gone about, 8 and 9 in those fights, or 9 and 10 in those fights. But the issue is that I just want to see Roxanne Modafferi in there with other kind of pioneers at this point. Just give her a break, because I think Roxanne has a really fun game against a lot of these contenders. Exactly. She does a lot of wonky things. It's a lot of things that a contender might not be ready for in a traditional sense. But the issue is that kind of runs out at a certain point. And I do feel like once you lose the little edge of your speed, or once you do lose any athleticism you might have once had, your game really does fall apart. And I feel like we're at that point in Roxanne's kind of athletic journey, if you will. She's putting on the 18th hole, and you kind of mentioned it. She's setting the record right now for most female MMA fights. There was a picture that she put up on Twitter of her with Robbie Lawler, and she's like, I finally got the chance to thank Robbie Lawler because he's one of like my early influences to get into the sport in the first place. And that's just wild to think about. In 2003, I was in kindergarten. Roxanne Modafferi was fighting in MMA. Women's MMA barely existed back then. Like, that's how long Roxanne's been around for. So if anybody can pull off a massive upset win, I'm sure it is Roxanne, because she's done it before, and I'm sure she's going to do it probably at least one more time in her MMA career. But it's hard to pick her in this fight. Taila Santos is just so well-rounded in so many areas that I don't really look at any one thing Roxanne can do and think, wow, she's going to be able to implement that one area of her game for 15 minutes.
Modafferi open to plus 190. She's at a plus 312 right now. Taila Santos open to minus 225. She's minus 406. And yeah, if we have a look at Fight Night picks, the votes weren't close the last time I looked. 84% going with Santos to 16% for Modafferi.
Well, thank you.
Brian Bibbo had to show support for the show and be the highest donator last week with help. It was a 5-person parlay bet. Wow. Good job for Brian. Appreciate the super chat.
Thank you, guys.
It's popping off like it was last year. So you guys make this possible. We absolutely love doing it for you. And if you want the real inside baseball, next week, the big move. So the studio is going to change. There's all sorts of work to go in. So the pics and the videos are going to be a little bit all over the place, but we're going to work to make sure that they're out there because I love the card, but appreciate you for sure. Matt, yeah, when I look at this one, for me, I like Taila Santos in this one. I mean, again, the top pressure, the submission defense that we saw too in her last couple of fights, and her boxing, she just continues to get better. The record was a little bit salty there, you know, coming into the UFC, and I say that, she was undefeated, but against lower competition, but wins that you like to see nonetheless. This is one that kind of, bam, we're a top 10 contender if we weren't already, and all of a sudden she's in everybody's hearts and minds, because Modafferi, a lot of people still remember her from the Ultimate Fighter finale and her way up through, and maybe you saw her fight on the regional scene too, but I like Santos here.
No, I agree 100%. It'll be really interesting to see just who they match Santos with up next if she is able to get the win, just because this is such a flooded division with talent all of a sudden. Like, 125 now has some of the best fighters from 150, 125, and 135. They've all kind of met each other in the middle right now, so 125 is on fire.
Malone Hart, now you win. This is just fun with money. Shamil Abdurakhimoov's taking on Chris Daukaus, and I kind of get nervous when I think about this fight because for Shamil Abdurakhimov, he's been off for a very long time. Obviously, we had a couple of different fight bookings. Now we ultimately get this fight. Todd saying Jay's in the wild card.
No, they're not. The Yankees beat the brakes off the Red Sox last night, and they're going to do the exact same thing to the Blue Jays in the next series.
Okay. Blue Jays. Let's play ball. And Oliver is saying, eat ketchup chips, please. There's some here.
They're pretty good.
You'll have to tune in for, not question mark kicks, a fight companion. But yeah, Matt, when I look at this one, Chris Daukaus, Chris Boxing, weighed in where you kind of expected him to. Shamil Abdurakhimov coming in a little bit on the heavy side. Abdurakhimov, you know exactly what he's going to do. The guy's a grinder. That's how he wins his fights. He's like a giant Ramzan Ameev. He just continues to go for them. Only unlike Ameev, he doesn't turn into a kickboxer in the third round and make it a 50-50 fight. It's just like the tide. It just continues to keep coming in, and it's tricky. So if Daukaus has that takedown defense like I think that he does, I think Daukaus has a great opportunity. But again, this one scares me. Tommy Luttrell saying over there in the comments section, something tells me Daukaus spends time on his back in this fight, and we could get an upset. I think we might get we could get an upset here, and it scares me.
I'm going to disagree. I was just about to say let's play a game called Talk Me Out of Chris Daukaus, because I think Chris Daukaus has all the intangibles that we really like when we look at the heavyweight division. Who has the cleaner technique in this fight between their striking and their takedown defense? I would say Chris Daukaus. On the inside, he's the much cleaner fighter. I would say on the outside, Shamil does have those long looping hooks that he tries to kind of close distance with, but Chris Daukaus has more than enough hand speed and I would say striking IQ to slip any of those potential shots and counter with his own power shots. I just really like Chris Daukaus in this fight. I think he has the footwork to get away from Shamil Abdurakhimov, and that's the real big point. If Chris Daukaus gets his back up against the cage, that's when Shamil might be able to take him down. That's where he'll drag one leg out from under him, he'll crash him down. It'll be one of those grinding type of a fights. And that's what I was going to say. If we ever had like a Bizarro fight of the night screen, Shamil Abdurakhimov is probably going to be one half of it. And it's no disrespect to him. It's just, like, his game's not the most exciting to watch. When he's at his best, it is that grinding style. I'm going to make my opponent basically quit is what he's trying to do. And I don't think you can do that to a guy like Chris Daukaus. I think Chris Daukaus is going to be able to evade Shamil Abdurakhimov. And I think when they do end up clashing in the exchanges, I think Chris Daukaus will be getting the better of them.
It's going to be a tricky fight, and it's one that, yeah, for me, I'm going to stay away from it personally, but I look at it, Chris Daukaus open to minus 140 favorite. He's minus 206 right now. Shamil open to plus 120, he's plus 171. And over at Fight Night Picks, boom, let's have a look at the votes. 83% going with Daukaus against the 40-year-old Abdurakhimov. Happy 32nd birthday, Chris Daukaus. It's his birthday today. Happy birthday to Roxanne Modafferi. It was yesterday. And Jessica Andrade has one today as well. But, yeah, when I go on this one, Matt, I do like the hand speed out of Chris Daukaus. Speed kills, and I know I say it all the time. No, I'm just kidding. You say that.
It does.
It's annoying. But I know that's exactly it. They were having fun with it over in the comments section. We both like Daukaus here, Matt. Let's move it into the next one. Somebody was asking earlier, what are you going with for a parlay? I'm going light. I'm going easy. It's the reintroduction. I lost last weekend. So, listen, just very easy.
Do you just say reintroduction every time you lose?
No. But when I look at it, Matt, I have Dan Hooker as the second half of the question mark kicks parlay. I've got Omar Morales. I've got Dan Hooker. Both of these guys, extenuating circumstances among them. Nasrat Haqparast went outside of the country. His mother, unfortunately, passed away due to cancer. It's a very sad situation.
It is.
And then he had a hard time getting back into the States. And for Dan Hooker, he had a hard time getting into the States. Both guys are here. Both guys are fit and ready, and they're ready to fight. And they weighed in successfully. So congrats to both of these guys.
Yeah.
If those things didn't happen, I think we would have gotten an awesome firefight. With those things happening, you kind of wonder if somebody's going to just put on the gas right off the hop, or if it's going to be a feeling out process in the first round. I don't know exactly what we're going to get. I do really like this fight, though, because for Hooker, very complete kickboxer. He gets beat by some of the more volume guys. He gets beat by some of the more power guys, but he puts on top fights against top fighters. And for Nasrat Haqparast, here's your opportunity, bud, because we've seen it. Like, he wasn't able to get the win over Drew Dober, and we've seen him fight lower levels of competition, unranked guys, and not be able to get the wins. Here's his shot to use that superior boxing over a lot of the division and great takedown defense. So I absolutely love this fight. Over in the comments section, seems like guys are kind of all over the place. Guys and gals are all over the place with the picks. So what are you saying on this one?
So I'm going to go pretty meta with this pick. Now hear me out. Dan Hooker and the City Kickboxing Gym are masters of feints. I'm not the first person to say this. This has been said for a very long time. Israel Adesanya has great feints. Dan Hooker has great feints. Alexander Volkanovski, I understand he only he doesn't exclusively train with them, but just another fighter who has great feints, who has trained with them. So, Dan Hooker has a very, very masterful, let's say, understanding of feints. That's what Nasrat Haqparast is going to have to use to get on the inside of Dan Hooker's range. So he's going to have to be the one feinting to try to draw out the attacks of Dan Hooker to then counter and get on the inside of his range. So you're basically asking Nasrat Haqparast to do something he's good at, but that his opponent is basically a master at, and that his whole game is built around. Dan Hooker has a very reactionary game, which is normally something we don't like. We like it when fighters take the fight to their opponents, because if you're the one leading the dance, and if you're the one making your opponent react to it, well, they're always on the back foot. They're always the one trying to catch up to what you're doing. And that's the issue I think Nasrat's going to have in this fight. He's going to be giving Dan Hooker a lot of information before he even sets up his own strikes, and I think that's really going to lead to a Dan Hooker TKO in this fight. Dan Hooker not only has great knees coming up the middle, he has great elbows to meet his opponents too, and if they are standing at range, Dan Hooker's got a great calf kick. He beat the brakes off of Poirier's lead leg with that kick, and he basically immobilized him, and I think Dustin Poirier is a much superior striker than what Nasrat Haqparast is, so I like Dan Hooker in this fight quite a bit.
The comments section all over Nasrat Haqparast. The comments section, you're not the folks over on Instagram, because 80% have Dan Hooker to get the win, 326 votes to 82 for Haqparast. And when we look at the odds for this one, again, Hooker minus 155 or thereabouts is the favorite. Nasrat Haqparast coming back at a plus 127. A lot of people saying, hey, Hooker gets knocked out. Well, he got knocked out by Michael Chandler.
But this is what I will say, and this doesn't seem to be a thing in MMA that gets brought up nearly enough. It's a very big discussion in boxing. When a guy loses like one fight via knockout in boxing, he'll lose like 2 or 3 fights via knockout, then just retire. Like, once your chin gets checked to that degree, a lot of the time it never comes back. And with Dan Hooker, that is the major caveat in this fight. After that Dustin Poirier fight, and even the Edson Barbosa fight, lump those 2 fights together, because those 2 fights are worth like 20 fights damage. That's the type of beating Dan Hooker took in those fights. And then you finally saw in the Chandler fight. Now, yes, Chandler has, you know, some of the better one-punch knockout power in the division, but still, we don't normally see Dan Hooker go down from a single shot like he did against Chandler, so that is Haqparast's big chance to win. If Dan Hooker's durability is completely gone, which I don't believe it is, then Nasrat might be able to get TKO win with the hands.
Yeah, it's going to be a great one. Absolute banger. The next one is also a banger. Marlon Moraes is taking on a really tough test from Rob Doshvili. If we go over to Fight Night Picks over on Instagram, 77% going with, come on, Marab! You knew I was going to do it. And what is it? 23% going with Magic Marlon. For Magic Marlon, you talk about durability. This guy's chin's gotten checked over and over again, so it is a little bit scary. Corey, as John Franklin would say, Sandhagen, he was able to do it. Like the man himself, Rob Font, was able to do it too. So when I look at this fight, Matt, for Marlon to get the win, we saw him try and implement it in the Font fight. It was like, okay, well, now I'm a wrestler. I'm doing all right in the striking, but now I'm a wrestler. He tries to do that against Merab. It's not going to work. No. So for me, I look at the striking, I'm going to call it a 50-50 at this point because Marlon has that one punch. He's such a great striker.
Marlon's so much better on the feet.
He's going to have to worry so much about the takedown. There's so many avenues where Merab can kind of capitalize in this one. Bishop Johnson saying Marlon's still a beast, but I really don't see a great opportunity for Marlon other than like a one-punch knockout.
This is my whole point. I think Marlon knows that going in, though. Like, if you're Marlon, why not let your hands go? You're going to get taken down anyway, so you might as well initiate the exchanges to begin with. It was like when Jorge Masvidal threw the flying knee against Ben Askren. His thought process was, and he gave the interview right after, he said, okay, let's go through the 3 versions of what can happen. Either I hit him in the chest or the arm, I miss his head, and I either, like, break his rib or I hurt his arm, or I cause some kind of damage to him. I miss and we get into a scramble, which was going to happen anyways. I'm fighting Ben Askren. Or I landed on the head and I knock him out, which is what happened. If you're Marlon, why not keep that same energy? It's worked for other guys before, and when you're fighting a wrestler like Merab, he's not going to even play that striking game. Merab's not the type of fighter who will work behind his jab, set things up, and then with a minute left in the round, finally go to his wrestling. He's going to go in there 45 seconds into the fight and shoot a takedown on you. Like, I don't know what the over-under is on what if Merab shoots in the first minute, but I would assume it's like a minus 250 on yes, he shoots in that first minute. Now, that might be a little extreme, but still, you get the idea. So, I honestly think for Marlon, if he just lets his hands go in the first 30 seconds, that will be his best opportunity to win. And I don't mean that from a standpoint of he just has to be that meathead one-punch knockout guy, and that's his only chance to win. I think almost from a fight IQ-wise, if he does go in there like, okay, I have to be the one-punch knockout guy, that'll be his best chance to win.
Yeah, I mean, for Marlon Moraes, you look at this, the fans at Fight Night Picks on Instagram, they definitely don't have him to win. When I look at the odds for this one, Marlon, a big underdog. This opened at Pick'em odds. He's a plus 206 over there, and if you look at it for Merab coming back at a minus 256, there's a lot of people are saying, you know, Marlon can do it. Marlon has these opportunities. Seems to be a pretty resounding, agreement over there. Just my 2 cents saying wrestling, and more wrestling. And listen, there's too many MMA guys in wrestling. If you're a big AEW fan, you might disagree with me. I'm joking, but geez, I mean, Jorge Masvidal throwing jump knees and you
don't even want to get me started.
In the squared circle.
Some of these people might be watching right now, but I was in an Xbox party last night, and one of them was like, oh, I have AEW on the TV. Do you know who Dan Lambert is? And I was like, wait, you mean the owner of American Top Team? And he was like, yeah, he's on here like every week. So I've heard enough about these people.
It's a lot of fun, but yeah, Matt, both of us going with Merab in this fight. We'll move on to the pay-per-view section, and if you want to hear us talk a little bit more about it, and there's 520 of yous out there right now,
hello.
I think we can give 500 likes on this video. We're at 166 right now. It takes 2 seconds. You don't have to hit up the super chat like everybody else did before you, but if you want to, you can. But we got to get those likes up there, because at 500, I mean, I'll pop the tarp off. Like, I'll get excited.
Wow.
You get to see what's going on, I guess. But Matt, yeah, when I look at this fight, Jessica Andrade, Cynthia Calvillo, a lot of people are saying don't count out Cynthia Calvillo. She's still young, but she's the older fighter here. She's young in terms of road miles, we'll say. And I'm in agreement with you there. I mean, you look at it. She's had losses to great fighters, like really good fighters. And for Jessica Andrade, the same can be said. She's done it at 35, 15, and now at 125. And if you want to compare apples to apples and play MMA math, let's juggle with those figurative apples. Who beat Caitlin Chukagian impressively? Andrade did. Who lost to her and didn't look great? Calvillo. Oh, Jessica Andrade wins. See, it's not that much fun, but yeah, Matt, when we look at this one, I can't pick Calvillo in this fight. I mean, unless Andrade falls off a cliff and her cardio isn't there, that's the only way that I see her winning this.
I think Calvillo could catch her in a submission and, like, maybe in one of those weird slams that Andrade does. Now, yes, they are very effective, but a lot of the times they do result in a scramble, and they sometimes result in a scramble where she ends up on the bottom. And against some of her opponents, they have worked out. Now, a lot of those matchups were down at 115 pounds, and that's the thing I've even had to remind myself. We haven't seen the Jessica Andrade just pick people up at 125 pounds. We saw her knock out Chukagian in one punch, then we saw her look terrible against Shevchenko. So there are a few question marks around Andrade at 125 pounds, but let's just say we get the best version of both fighters. I still think Andrade is the better fighter. I really do. Now, I will say that these fighters are kind of opposites in the way that you have to judge their ages. Jessica Andrade is, 29 years old, but she's been in there with some of the best fighters. She's 30, sorry. She's been in there with some of the best fighters, and she's taken a lot of damage for a 30-year-old. We don't normally associate, long-term damage with women's MMA, but I would say Jessica Andrade is one of those characters who she's been in there in so many crazy fights, from the Claudia Gadelha fight, to the Tisha Torres fight, to the Joanna fights. She's had a lot of crazy fights, and maybe those are starting to accumulate on her, but with all that being said, I still think she'll be able to get the win.
At Fight Night picks on this one, 86% going with Andrade. Is 451 total votes to 72 for Calvillo. Again, if we look at the odds for this one, Andrade is a decent favorite. She's at a minus 237. This is kind of crazy because this week, at the start of the week, she was a minus 275. So the money has come in on Calvillo as the week's gone on. She's plus 192. If you do like her, but I don't, Matt, we move into our next fight. And again, we're talking about black and white fights. Andrade either absolutely whoops Calvillo or she falls off a cliff. Calvillo can sync up a submission, so on and so forth. The next one, Curtis Blades, Jairzinho Rozenstruik. There's two outcomes. Blades wrestles Rozenstruik. Rozenstruik knocks out Blades. I know there's never any finite possibilities in fights. Robin Black would be the perfect guy to break this fight down. I know that might sound silly to somebody, but he's the one that can figure out those intricacies that I might oversimplify, and he will tell you not to just make it 1A, 1B. But to me, I look at this one, it gets weird. Justin Franks is saying, here we go, Jairzinho. That's about it for this fight. LMFAO, why couldn't you be... come on, Phoenix. That's enough. Yikes. But, Matt, when we're looking at this fight, can Jairzinho land a crazy kick?
I have a crazy theory about this fight. I think Jairzinho has a better chance to win as the underdog than Shamil Abdurakhimov does against Chris Daukaus, although the odds wouldn't suggest so. Chris Daukaus isn't as big of a favorite as Curtis Blades is, but I honestly think Jairzinho could starch Curtis Blades with one punch. We haven't seen... Now, my pick is still Curtis Blades. Let me get that out of the way right now. But I really need to see a fighter have one fight after a terrible knockout loss. And it's kind of like with Dan Hooker. I still think Dan Hooker's going to win, but I have some question marks about his durability. And with Curtis Blades, he ate 3 strikes against Derek Lewis in that whole entire fight. It was an uppercut that knocked him out, and 2 other shots that were super unnecessary that landed as clean as follow-up shots possibly can. So I do worry a little bit about Blades' chin. Let's say he does telegraph one of those takedown attempts like he did against Derek Lewis. I don't think Jairzinho has the uppercut, the same type of weapons that Derek Lewis does, but I still think he can probably put out Curtis Blades if he lands one clean shot. And the thing about Jairzinho is, he moves pretty well on his feet, too. I think he could honestly defend a couple takedown attempts. Not if Curtis Blades, gets around his hips or anything, but if Curtis Blades is just kind of rushing forward, I think Jairzinho could use his movement just to keep this fight on the feet for at least 30, 45 more seconds.
Yeah, and I mean, when I look at this one for Rozenstruik, the kicks are right there. And I mean, it's just flashbacks of, all right, D. Kiriko getting knocked out. And then if we play that tree at 185, the list goes on. But Al Hassan getting knocked out. Who else was there? Or Al Hassan doing the knocking out, getting knocked out. Joaquin Buckley getting knocked out. Like, there's so many fights like that. And I look at this one. Blades lunges in, eats a head kick up near the top of the shin or the knee, and boom goes the dynamite.
Rice versus Sterling.
Yeah, but when I look at the odds for this, yeah, I mean, they are skewed in Blades' way. He opened a minus 240, he's a minus 325 right now for Rosenstrike. Opened a plus 198, he's a plus 255 right now. Luke is saying Blades only lost to Ngannou, and Blades, guys, don't forget, it's a knockout chance from only Rosenstrike. Is it risky? It's risky, because Blades gets knocked out. Like, those 3 losses are not by decision.
Yeah, but they're the 2 hardest punchers in the division's history.
That's true, but you're getting knocked out nonetheless. For Rosenstrike, I mean, he got knocked out by Ngannou as well. But yeah, I just see it so like one or the other. And for me, I like Curtis Blades' wrestling edge. Now, Rosenstrike's had good takedown defense. We haven't seen it that tested, but it's good enough.
Okay, Junior Albini and Alistair Overeem took him down at will.
That was a while ago, and you get better, especially when you're going from training in Suriname to American Top Team. You're only going to get better. But for me, yeah, I really like Blades in this fight. Like, I really like
I do, too. Again, if Jairzinho wins, it's going to be on Twitter for about 3 weeks, and Curtis Blades is probably going to want to stay on social media for a while, but I don't think he's going to be able to get it done. Curtis Blades has everything you look for in a top contender at the heavyweight division. It just seems like every title eliminator that he finds himself in, he does lose it.
Bro Bogan with the comment of the week. I'm sorry, but we got to hit it. Getting hit by a truck doesn't make getting hit by a car hurt any less.
Exactly.
All right, Matt. We'll move it into the fight that everybody wants to talk about. Diaz Lawler 2. Matt, at the start of the week, we both took Nick Diaz. Let's put that one out there. You can rag us in the comments section, but I will say, over at Fight Night Picks on Instagram, 52% Lawler to 48% Diaz. That's 280 votes to 263. So I want to hear from you. Everybody in that comment section. We're up around 550 for the views, 211 likes. The tarp stays on, but you can toss a like up there. It's free. Freshie is saying, hey guys, hope you're feeling great on this day. I want to get to the rest of your comment because now it's gone. And you're saying that this is the day of Nick's return. Yeah, I love this fight. Like, straight up, I'm so excited for this one. Like, you know, sometimes before pay-per-views, it's like, okay, sometimes it's work. It's not as much fun. Like, you know, last weekend. Man, I've been eating up these countdown shows. I've been watching every embedded. Like, I've been watching social media. I'm so amped up for this fight. I hate everything that Nick Diaz has said all week for this one. It scares me so much. He decided, you know what, we're going to play the tomfoolery games of, now this one's at middleweight. And Robbie's like, okay, I'll do it. Robbie's lost 4 fights in a row against ranked competition. Nick Diaz hasn't fought since 2015. Who was it? BT Sport threw out the graphic of these were the champions the last time Nick fought. Who was there? Rowdy Ronda Rousey? Anthony Pettis was a champion then. So, Matt, yeah, when I look at this one, it's such a weird bucket of muscles, as we say at Fight Night Picks. It's also a giant popcorn fight, like we say at Fight Night Picks. What are we saying here? Does any of the fight week stuff scare you? Because it is kind of typical Nick Diaz stuff, but when you're away for 6 years, it scares a lot of people.
It does, but the one thing better than... I don't really know. Here's the thing about Nick Diaz. You never really know. It's one thing to say things to hype a fight or to... Yeah, I guess just hype a fight. It's another thing to change your contract the week of your fight. That's the one thing that I have some hesitations about. Like, I don't give a flying F about what you say in your interviews before a fight. I really don't care that much about the lead up. I care about how you fight in the cage more than anything else. Like, it's 90% in the cage stuff and maybe 10% outside the cage stuff. Although Nick Diaz hasn't been actively competing for the last, 6 years it's been, that's better than getting hit in the head and having 3 straight fight of the years like Robbie Lawler had. I think Robbie Lawler's reached that Tyron Woodley stage of his career to where he's just accepting damage and not really returning any. Look at the Neil Magny fight. He looked terrible in that fight. And I asked this question to you at the start of the week in our prediction show. If we just remove the names from it, if I told you Nick Diaz is making his return against the guy who got 30-27 by Neil Magny, would you be that excited for the fight?
No, but again, it's a rematch 17 years in the making. And for me, like Robbie Lawler, you're training. Did you see how much? And I'm asking the people out there on your phone, on your TV, on your laptop, on your PlayStation, your Xbox. I don't know what you're doing. I'm asking everybody out there. Did you see how much the UFC promoted the fact that Robbie Lawler's training with Jason Jackson? Because that gets me fired up. Jason Jackson got his props. I mean, this is a guy that beat Benson Henderson. Yeah, it was at 170. But Jason Jackson, great wrestling, great jiu-jitsu, great striking, perfect guy to train with to get ready for Nick Diaz. And I just kind of went, oh, it's an old guy fight, and I'm excited about it. And forget about all the particulars, and forget about using your brain, Craig. And then it just went, whoop. The power plant's back on. Wow, you're training with Jason Jackson? I absolutely love that. And when I look at that, yeah, he was training with him to get ready for Magny too, and it didn't really work out for him. But Neil Magny's still a top contender. Nick Diaz hasn't fought in 6 years. Again, changing your contract, I hate it. Looking like a bag of milk. He didn't actually look like a bag of milk. On the scales, he didn't look that bad.
He looked like a lot of rehydrated fighters.
Yeah, and in some of those videos where he's out there shadowboxing, he looks like that on Instagram anyway. Again, couple that with TMZ and everything, it kind of scares you a bit.
That was the one thing where you could tell the 13-year-olds were on Twitter. Now, I understand. I'm a young man myself, and I wasn't really around for Nick Diaz prime, but I can now say I think I've watched all except for like 3 of Nick Diaz's professional fights. And even I wouldn't really tweet out about like, oh, I saw this about Nick Diaz. But people were saying, oh, I don't like his shadowboxing. Immediately, that was like what Craig said before the last season of NBA when he was like, DeMarcus Cousins, am I right? You kind of out yourself as you haven't been paying that much attention. Like, Nick Diaz, that's what he does.
MMA guy doesn't watch NBA.
No, I'm just saying. Like, the people who are like, oh, Nick Diaz looks bad, it's like, well, you kind of just fooled yourself right now. Like, if you've been paying attention at all, that's always how he moves. And the thing is, I think people just buy too much into all the pre-fight hype and build-up and whatnot. I still think Nick Diaz is going to fight this fight primarily as a grappler, and that's why I think he's going to win X's and O's wise.
CS saying Diaz has been doing triathlons. Check his Twitter. He will be fine. Brandon Davis, before his last fight in the UFC, only did marathons every single day, and his cardio was great, but his fights was bad, and he lost, and then he was gone. For me in this fight, Matt, Robbie Lawler coming in here, gaining a lot of steam coming into today. He could have had him at a minus 117. He's minus 161 right now. Nick Diaz was down to about a minus 102, minus 105. He's now plus 136 because of everything that's happened this week. And you're darn tootin' I'm changing the pick. I'm going with Robbie Lawler. I hate every single thing I've seen from Diaz. Keeping in mind that this is typical Nick Diaz stuff, but again, this is older Nick Diaz, not younger man Nick Diaz, who's still in the peak physical years of his life. You know, the 31s, the 32s. He's not there. Not to say that Lawler is, because again, he's gotten up there in age. But I think all the weigh-in stuff, it kind of it goes in Lawler's favor. He was already cutting the weight, getting ready for 170. Diaz might not have. And maybe you think that plays a factor for him, and that's fine. But for me, yeah, you're right. I'm going with Robbie Lawler in this one. Everybody's going to call me a donkey and a tool in the comments section from earlier on in the week on that single pick. But yeah, I like Lawler in this one now.
I think that unless Nick Diaz just showed up for a paycheck, he should be able to win this fight. And this is why. If you look at Robbie Lawler and how he fought Neil Magny, it wasn't the fact that you just get outstruck by Neil Magny. It was the way Neil Magny decided to fight Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler doesn't throw anything for volume at this stage of his career, and he doesn't really have one-punch knockout power. And that's not really something he ever possessed at 170. I shouldn't say that. He did possess one-punch knockout power, but Robbie Lawler has always been an accumulation and a power guy, and now I don't even think he has the accumulation factor. So unless he is able to land that one power shot up the 3 strikes he throws per round, I really don't think he's going to be able to get the win. I just worry about his output. I really do. And I know there's a lot of question marks surrounding Nick Diaz as well, but I think if Nick Diaz realizes, okay, if I go in there, just try to wrestle Robbie Lawler a little bit, force this to be a grappling fight, not just an MMA fight, I do think Nick Diaz will be able to get the win.
Cody Sanders, thoughts on Blades and Valentina not going the distance, small 2-leg parlay. All right, Matt, you're going with Diaz, I'm going with Lawler. Let's answer the question when we go into this fight. Lauren Murphy's tougher than a $2 steak, and we even talked about this like before we started the show. It was, does Valentina actually finish Lauren Murphy? Because she's tough to finish. Like, she's tough to finish. She's just like her dog Marge. Just a scrappy dog that ended up jumping in the car, and now we're here. Lauren Murphy definitely deserves this shot. If you don't think so, whatever. Because she's won 5 fights in a row against good competition. I get it, her last one was a split against Joanne Calderwood, but going into that fight, it was known that that was the title eliminator. So good for Murphy. It's a good opportunity for a good fighter to get a shot at the belt. I'm in total agreement with that. Valentina Shevchenko, what did she say in some of those countdowns that I definitely paid attention to? It was, oh, we went on a vacation. We were on a boat. And then we went to the Pacific Northwest and we trained at a hole in the wall. Again, she did the same thing when she fought at UFC Jacksonville. Trained at Smiley Face MMA. She did the same thing getting ready for Joanna. She's training at small gyms because she's the best fighter in the world. Now they're billing her as such. She's kind of like the... And it's a comp because it's the same weight class, but she's kind of like the Demetrius Johnson. She can't headline a card unless it's like a fight night or a weird, like, thrown together pay-per-view. But she is such a talented fighter, and I like Valentina in just about every situation. We even said that at the start of the week. Murphy has great forward pressure. Murphy's great on the ground. But is she better than Jennifer Maia on the ground? I don't think so. Is she a better striker than Joanna or... Nunes is a bad one, but a lot of the fighters that Valentina's faced, I just don't think so. I'm sorry for the question earlier in the super chat. I've hurt you, I guess, but I don't know if she's going to be able to finish it. That's the thing.
It's kind of misleading to say that Shevchenko just trains at these hole-in-the-wall gyms because I would say her training environment is still consistent. Like, she still has her primary training partner and head coach with her everywhere she goes. I really just feel like her switching up camps and switching up going to these weird gyms is just for new training partners. And if anything, that's a huge positive. Like, I think that it's almost a disservice that some MMA fighters do where they stay at one gym for their whole career. Like, look at Usman. At Sanford MMA, they turned him into a champion. And then he went to Elevation. And now he might become one of the all-time greats because of it. You kind of pick up as you go from gym to gym, and that's actually what I really like about Shevchenko. I know a lot of people look at her training at these small gyms as a negative, but personally, I always look at it as a positive. It would be very similar if, like, I don't know, what if Gilbert Burns had Henry Hooft, but Henry Hooft also followed him around to every other gym in North America? Like, it would be a very similar situation to that, so I don't put a lot into it, especially in a negative aspect. The question of can Murphy make it to the final bell, this is what I will say. There's no quit in Lauren Murphy. I don't think Lauren Murphy's going to quit in between rounds. I don't think Lauren Murphy's going to get in a position that she just can't get out of, and therefore the fight's going to get stopped. But I still think Shevchenko's going to be able to get the finish. I think she sets up her strikes a little bit too well. And the problem with Murphy is she moves forward a lot. And Shevchenko's not a one-punch power puncher by any means. But if you're constantly meeting her halfway with her strikes, it's going to just accentuate the power that she already possesses.
Yeah, I mean, Shevchenko opened a minus 720. She's minus 1497 average on best fight odds. Lauren Murphy opened a plus 520. She's plus 846 right now. And if we look at Fight Night Picks over on the Instagrams, 93% was Shevchenko. So yeah, I'm going with Shevchenko, and I'm sorry I couldn't give you the answer on a finish. It's just, yeah, Murphy's too tough. 2020 Fight Night Picks Female Fighter of the Year, for what that's worth. We'll move into our main event, and it was up there earlier. Astro Martin, inappropriate comment in your last one, saying that Volkanovski's too predictable, and he's going to lose this fight. He hasn't lost since 2013. He's won, 19 fights in a row?
And he lost at welterweight.
If he was predictable, one of those 19 guys would have beat him. Jose Aldo would have beat him. Max Holloway would have beat him. Say what you will, it's controversial. But still, he would have beaten him by more or less impressive fashion. Fender Jazz, good day from Ottawa. This is a formality, of course, but it's fun. It would be great if lucky Lauren Murphy got lucky. It'd be neat. It would add a wrinkle into a division that has very few wrinkles. Very well pressed.
If Lauren Murphy wins, we should try to get her on because she was our fighter of the year.
That's true. Volkanovski's taking on Ortega. I'm going to throw it on over there at Fight Night Picks so we can just have fun with it for the voting perspective. Sure. 65% Volkanovski to 35% Ortega. At the start of the week, before doing any research, just using my brain, I went, this is a 50-50 fight to me because Ortega, in my mind's eyes, is big guy for 145. Credit to him, too, for weighing 144. I like to see that. He didn't look like a dead skeleton. I know he said, his cheeks were a little skeleton. Whatever. He looked pretty good. And Volkanovski looked good, too. So take all of that for what it's worth. But Ortega, with this new group around him, this complete coaching kind of slew that he has there, love it. Paul Herrera is one of those guys. Somebody out there, out of the 590s, going, I know Paul Herrera. Do you know Paul Herrera?
No.
He's the guy that wore the gi that got elbowed by Gary Goodrich. Garrett Rincon hitting us up in the super chat. I think Volkanovski will get the decision, but I'm hoping Ortega chokes him out. I love this fight, and I love that team around Ortega. I don't know if it's going to be enough to beat Volkanovski.
I love the team around Brian Ortega, but there was also a quote this week that said, yeah, Brian Ortega was partying a lot the week of the Max Holloway fight, and he was going to do that this week until Tracy Cortez says, cut that shit out or something. That was the quote.
You weren't supposed to say that.
Sorry, but if that's the inner circle that you have around you, those aren't the decisions that you make on fight week. I think that if you do completely change your camp, and you do try to get the best people around you training-wise, you're going to make those wholesale differences to your everyday everyday life. And I don't think Brian Ortega's done that by that quote. And I know I myself have said, I don't put a lot into pre-fight stuff. But if you know that, okay, I was a lesser version of myself because of the decisions or the poor decisions that I made in the lead up to the Max Holloway fight. You have the self-realization to say, okay, that was a mistake. I can do better than that. And still on fight week, you almost have the exact same thing happen to you.
Where are you getting this?
It was all over Twitter yesterday. There's some MMA fighting. So that's a concern that I have about Brian Ortega. And I don't think he's got one of these John Jones things where moving forward, it's going to be a really big problem. But I just don't like Brian Ortega against a lot of the elite in this division. And I said this to Craig before we started filming this video. Brian Ortega has this really nice check hook from his lead hand. This is something I said about Brian Ortega a long time ago. I would honestly put his punching power at 145, and this might be a little controversial. I look at him kind of like a Jeremy Stevens type figure at this division. I think if Brian Ortega catches you with a clean shot, he can hurt you just as well as anyone at this division. But my issue is that a lot of his strikes come from that long-range punching style, and I think if Volkanovski can get on the inside of that and land a clean right hand up the middle, I think we might get a knockout that's very similar to Usman versus Maximov.
I think you gotta cite your sources, because I can't find that at all. But for me, when I look at this fight, and I look pretty hard there in the minutes away.
A second.
Volkanovski is so well-rounded, and that's the big thing about it. And if we go up a little bit further, because I think I missed the super chat again. So Garrett, I did mention it, but I'll mention it again. Volkanovski's going to win by decision. Kevin King, shout out from New Brunswick. Kevin, are you the same Kevin King that I know? Is Jason out there? But yeah, when I look at this fight, Matt, Ortega, again, his striking's improved. For you to sit there and strike with the Korean Zombie, what a surprise that was for me, and I'm sure a lot of other people out there. I love to see that. I thought it was absolutely crazy.
And he's added weapons, too. It's not just like Brian Ortega is a boxer and he's just gotten better with his hands. He's added elbows. He's added leg kicks. Like, the thing about Brian Ortega is that he has added more onto his game. My big problem is, how does he get Alexander Volkanovski to the ground? I think unless he does daze him with a shot at long range, and then Volkanovski's the one who then decides to tie up or go for a takedown attempt, I think this fight is going to be a kickboxing bout, and I don't think Brian Ortega is going to be able to beat Volkanovski in that type of a fight.
Ignorant MMA saying Joshua Usyk are walking out right now, so we got to mow it, because I love that fight. Matt, yeah, for me, I'm going Volkanovski. You're going Volkanovski?
But I do think this is going to be like a great fight, one of the better title fights in this division's history.
Matt, I absolutely love it. I am minimizing everything that I have so we can go back through the entire card. I want to say thanks, first of all, to everybody that's thrown out a super chat out there. This has been the wildest show that we've had in a very long time. 592 of you tuning in right now. You give yourselves a pat on the back. We appreciate that as well. 254 total likes. We have a fight companion for the main card.
So wait, quick pick, Craig. Anthony Joshua, Alexander Usyk.
Usyk.
Fair enough. I like Usyk as well.
All right, Matt. 254 total likes. We would certainly appreciate that if you can do that. Luke Colley's saying, can't believe Volkanovski started fighting at 22. Man, it's wild. All right, Matt. From the bottom to the top, I have Morales as the first leg of the question mark kicks parlay. It's a close fight. It's a scary fight. And maybe you want to stay away and fade me for this week, but I have Morales here.
I also like Morales in this fight.
All right, Matt. Our next one, Semelsberger. Sano, I've got Semelsberger.
So do I.
I don't have much to say about it.
Neither do I. It should be a quick fight.
Brundage Maximov, I see it as really close, but I like the underdog here with the striking, so I'm going to go with Brundage.
It's going to be a really close fight. Both these guys should have good UFC careers, I think. I think that's something we can both agree on because they both have good depth to their games for this being their UFC debut, I would say. Now, Maximov does need to improve on his striking, and for Brundage, I would say he has a very good overall game, but I still like Maximov in this one.
Maximov, I don't love the striking. That's why I disagree, but Medic taking on Turner. It's the same thing. It's like, man, this is such a good fight. I like Turner in this one ever so slightly. I love that knockout that Medic had his last time out. Joe Rogan podcast, so on and so forth. He had a huge coming out party on a big pay-per-view, and he got a great opportunity. Let's see him replicate that. Turner's a tough opponent. Maybe we'll see it, but I love the fight. I have Turner here.
These guys are both all arms and legs, and this should be a phenomenal fight for as long as it lasts. Now, I think Medic should be able to land one of those big power hooks at some point throughout this fight, but Jalin Turner has a great chance, and that's the interesting thing about this fight. Both these guys do have pretty good ceilings. I know Jalin Turner's been around for longer than you probably think of in your head, but I think this fight should be phenomenal, although I still have Medic.
Love the takes. Thanks, guys, from Walker Scott. Keith hitting up the super chat. We had one up there earlier, and we got to give shouts. Brian Bibbo hit us up as well.
Thank you, guys.
Matt, the next fight, Modafferi Santos. I've got Santos.
So do I.
All right, next one, Daukaus or Abdurakhimov. Feels like a parlay buster. I'm so nervous. I've still got Daukaus.
If Daukaus is able to win, give us that Tom Aspinall, Chris Daukaus fight finally.
Make it happen. Todd saying Jays or Yanks. Go Jays, go.
Yankees.
Okay,
come on.
Blue Jays. Hooker and Hack Brass. Second leg of the question mark kicks parlay. I have Hooker. I like the odds, I guess.
When I say fight of, you say the night. I still like Dan Hooker in this one.
All right, Moraes taking on Dvalishvili. I've got, come on, Marab!
Yeah, I worry about Moraes' durability no matter who he's in there with. Now, I know Marab's not a devastating puncher by any means, but I still like Marab. Just his gas tank is absurd at this weight division, and his overall wrestling's really, really good.
Next one, Andrade taking on Calvillo. I have Andrade. I still kind of worry about the durability. Not the durability, but I guess the staying power, the cardio. Donald E. Guys hitting us up in the super chat. Just here to buy another. Come on, Marab. All right, so
Thank
Matt
you, Donald.
Serra, when he was in the corner from Rob all the way up through, and you won't hear it tonight, but you'll hear it from me. Come on, Marab! I hope that one was good enough and I didn't blow out anybody's eardrums. Thanks so much for the super chat. You guys are making this the best show I think we've ever had. So I've got Andrade here.
This feels like one of those fights where if Cynthia Calvillo wins, we're going to look really stupid. Like, she's going to work behind the jab, create range, and then submit Jessica Andrade in the third round. I don't think that's going to happen, but Calvillo has a really big opportunity in this fight to finally say, hey, I deserve a title shot and a chance against Valentina Shevchenko. Now, if that's a good decision for any of these fighters to have, that's another conversation, but Calvillo does have one of those huge opportunities ahead of her. I still think Andrade's going to get the dub.
Hey, remember that time Calvillo fought I in a main event? She looked good. Maybe she can do it again. I don't know. Rosenstrike taking on Blades. It's the choice of one or the other, so I'm going with Blades.
Blades should be able to wrestle his way to a win, but I'm telling you right now, if Jairzinho ever figures out that when I move forward, I knock guys out immediately, he'll be the hardest person to beat in this division. I still think Blades will get it done.
Matt, then we have Lawler Diaz. I'm going to not the dark side. I'm going with Lawler in this one. I know it's a normal Nick Diaz week if nothing's normal, but for me, I think the weight change, it's so stupid, but I like Lawler here now.
I'm worried about everything about this fight, and like you said, both of us are probably going to look stupid no matter what happens, but I'm going to stick with Nick Diaz. It's like every teacher tells you when you do a multiple choice, just stick with your first one, and that'll probably be the right instinct. So I'm going to stick with Nick Diaz, although he'll probably end up getting flatlined in 10 seconds.
I see the comments over there that the voice is a little bit close. Scarecrow going with it. Patrick Swayze. Conky. What a great character in shows. Shevchenko taking on lucky Lauren Murphy. I've got Shevchenko. She's minus like 1,800 favorite.
Shevchenko should be able to win this one. She's good everywhere. Unless she's fighting Amanda Nunes at 135 pounds, she's probably going to win all of her UFC fights.
Keith's saying you've got to keep doing the day of the picks. Keith, we got to have you around. We've been doing it for a long time, but I'm glad to have you along, Keith, and everybody else too. And then up near 600 viewers and 278 likes. Let's just get above 300.
It'd be nice.
It's easy. I have Ann Still for both of these fights, so I have Volkanovski here.
I also have Ann Still in this main event, and my odd hot take is I think we're going to see a similar knockout to what we saw in Usman versus Masvidal. I think Volkanovski's going to throw an overhand up the middle. Ortega's going to try to catch him with a check hook and then end up eating a clean shot. I'm not going to say, inside the distance or anything, but I do think Volkanovski will be able to get it done.
People are loving it. Delicate, Ricky.
Great.
Delicate. If you like the conky stuff, maybe we just do voice work for a show, but appreciate everybody that's tuned in so far today. Absolutely love it. Everybody that hit up the super chat, you made this
Thank you, guys.
a wild show. You're going to help feed the boys, make the move even easier, and hopefully you can all tune in for the fight companion, because if we're down and the picks were bad, then we're going to hear it. But listen, that's all part of the dance. And I just absolutely love this one. You put yourselves into the shoes of being just a fight fan for this one, and it's absolutely insane. The parlay, a lot of people are asking about it. I've got Morales and Hooker. Listen, I just like the odds on it, but I'm not throwing a lot of cheddar on it. You just take it easy. And you love the fights, and you have a lot of fun. What are you saying?
I think this could be a phenomenal pay-per-view, top to bottom. I really do think this could be one of those cards where at the end of the night, there's like 6 bonuses handed out, you know?
We got over the 300.
Well, there you go. But we're going to have like 2 fight of the nights, 4 performance bonuses. Like, I really do think this is going to be everything that hopefully we've been making it up to be. So I do think this is going to be a great night of fights. So hopefully you'll join us in 5 hours?
Yeah, pretty much 5
about
hours.
5 hours for the Fight Companion. So make sure you check us out.
All right, thanks everybody so much for tuning in. You can find us in 5 hours if you're subscribed. You hit the bell notification, you know when we go live. I'm so looking forward to that Fight Companion. I'm going to dress up for it. Why not? So keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, and as we always say,
Let's get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, recorded in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. It's time for Fight Night Picks with your host, Craig and Matt.